date on the I-20 and DS 2019. That date is flexible. It can be shortened based on the academic need. It can be extended based on the academic need. However, it is up to the student to work with our office, work with you to get that extended. In our database, we have a system where students are emailed. It's like 6 months, 3 months, and then 1 month prior, or I forget the timeline, but they are emailed often about the deadline. And in that email, we link to the step-by-step process of how to request an extension. So they are informed via email. It's not a text message, unfortunately. It is email. They still have to read that with the U Chicago email. So, the purposes of extension is to extend for academic reasons. That the student has more coursework to complete, or the student is continuing to work on their dissertation. They need to do more research. They have to do corrections on their research, and that they're able to register for those quarters in which they are still in the country. It's not necessarily for, gosh, I just haven't found that perfect job yet, so I'm going to keep working on my dissertation. Not necessarily that scenario. I mean, they could be working on the job search at the same time of finishing their thesis, but the main reason that they're here as an F-1 student is to study. And that was always the intent for the student when they applied for that initial visa, the intent to study for a degree. So we may seem very rigid, or the rules may seem really rigid, but these rules are based on those intentions, the integrity of the F-1 program, the integrity of the J-1 program. So what we need for the extension is Danny mentioned earlier, the AFR, Academic Financial Review. So every time we're extending, we are reviewing, we're confirming by you that the student is making positive academic progress in their program. And then we're also determining that they're able to continue to support themselves financially. It looks like a comprehensive form, like a complicated form that's quite comprehensive, but it's a smart form in a way. If you do access this from our website, all this auto-populates and adds. So what we are filling out is the student's name and so the student's name, student ID, the program, and then this is a drop-down menu. So if you've seen the old form, there wasn't a drop-down menu. It just said program extension and return from leave of absence. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the screenshot of the drop-down menu and also show this other information. So the program extension is the first one. And then here you're listing the expected completion quarter. So when does a student expect to complete the quarter? Now there's a trick to this, not a trick, but something, an additional thought process. Remember earlier about maintaining your status, you need to be able to register full-time every quarter. So with some PhD students, they are here longer than they are able to register full-time. So with the new rule of advanced residency, with the 8th year, it's the final year that they can enroll full-time. It's important that we are updating this based on the final quarter in which they're able to register full-time, or we know that in the final quarter they can register below full-time. But I guess it's the ability to register. Okay? So more with PhD students who have completed coursework and working on their thesis, it's important to review when is their final quarter that they're able to register. Not necessarily the final quarter where they believe they'll be depositing or defending. Each university brings different ones. Does that make sense? Okay. Because if we extend based on the actual date that they're going to defend, and that is past the date that they're actually able to register, we're unable to catch the students and email them and say, hey, your status is ending and you need to do other actions in order to maintain it. Because again, in order to maintain the I-20 or DS 2018, they need to be able to register full-time. So that's the difference now, too, with the shortening of the ability to register full-time with an advanced residency, going from 12 to 8 years. Okay? So this is another case where the academic record and the immigration record will not match. If a student will need to surpass the 8th year of advanced residency, maybe an extra quarter or two, they're going to show that they're still currently a student. However, their immigration record will either be that the student, and again, this is not the work authorization workshop, but I have to dip into that information a little bit. The student may need to apply for work authorization, called OPT for F-1 students, or academic training for J-1 students. So their immigration record is ending, but their academic record is continuing. Okay? So we will work with the students on those plans. You're ending your ability to register full-time, here are your options, but we need to have that accurate information to start with in order to have those conversations. Okay? So that's the main thing I want to be understood. Not that what are all the options a student has, but that when you're filling this out, you're looking at Gargoyle or your database to see when that final quarter is that they can register full-time. Okay? And then here we want to, this is our way of confirming that they're making academic progress. So it's, we're looking from you, the expert, of that you're looking at the program, when they're making progress towards their program. And then here on the bottom is the expenses. So we need to make sure that the student's able to meet the expenses. And if there's funding by your department or unit, you'll document that here, and then we'll get the difference of what the student needs to show. Okay? So again, this gets auto-populated when you start plugging all the numbers in. And then the student will fill out the second page. So if there is a difference in that box that I showed you earlier, the student will need to document how they'll be funding that difference, self-family fund, there's an employer or a government support, and they will need to show documentation for that additional support.
This is the same for F-1 and J-1?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you are indicating that there's going to be support given by the university, we do not need additional documentation. We take your word for it. However, if a student needs to apply for a visa because they're traveling during winter break or summer break and their visa had expired, they will need an extra document in that letter. So if they're asking you for a letter, it's more for that reason than for our purposes to extend. So in order to extend, the student will turn in this form, which is one complete form, and then their financial documentation. Okay? We'd like for the student to turn it in all at once. The student should be controlling the submission of their application. They should be initiating, and they should be, and then submitting all together. So the form I went over with you can only be completed by the designated advisor or designated administrator within the unit. In our website, we have a list of the designated administrator. So it might be hard to look here, but if there is an error or if there is an update, it's very important that you communicate that to the designated advisor. So Mike, myself, or Danny, Chidima, and then Jen Napsiger should work with college students in SSA. So this person on this list no longer is reviewing these documents. We need to have that updated so students know to go for these specific documents.
We might want to switch biological sciences division because we don't really have it to the student's office anymore.
Okay.
It's the office of graduate and postdoctoral affairs. So students won't know what you're talking about.
Okay, if you want to email Danny that.
And we're not even on there.
Okay. So these updates, again, I won't remember them standing up here. So if you want to email the designated advisor, and then that will get vetted, and then we'll confirm that we're able to accept it from that person or that office, and we'll get that updated.
So send that to Mike Kegler?
Yeah, if that's the department. I believe it's the correct department.
Yeah.
Okay. So, life happens. Students are unable to register for certain reasons. Maybe they have great things that happen. They have a wonderful internship opportunity abroad that they feel that it's important for them to take the internship and wear a quarter and not register at the University of Chicago. Okay? Or something happens that for personal reasons they need to leave the U.S. Because a medical issue with the family occurred and they're unable to register. Okay? Again, like I said earlier, students have options. They're humans, they're not just aliens. They're students, they have lives, and the government has set up systems to support these changes in their lives. But the main thing is that the student needs to initiate communication with our office. So if you are hearing things, or you know students are planning on taking a leave in the future quarters, work with us to say, hey, check with OIA, make sure you are doing the proper documents, updating your documents appropriately so that things are easier in the future. Okay? So if students not planning to register, okay, they need to contact OIA. They need to contact us before the action so that we can work with them and identify what their options are. If they contact us, you can see at the top, there's greater options. So if there's a medical reason that they're not planning to register, they may have the option of withdrawing with the university for a quarter, and then with their immigration record, either applying for a medical reduced course load, or the other option is requesting to say, hey, I don't want to mess with this, I just want to go home, and I'll come back when I'm ready. So there, we can terminate their record, but for authorized early withdrawal. I know terminate sounds like a very scary word, and I wish they changed it, but if we are able to terminate in a positive way with authorized early withdrawal, then their immigration record will not have a negative mark on their record, basically. So when they apply for future visa statuses, or when they're planning to come back to resume study, then they won't have a challenge to say, hey, how come you weren't maintaining your status? By communicating to us, and we're able to update their record, that shows that they've been, in a way, maintaining their status because they're making appropriate decisions and working with our office. Okay? So, simple form is an online form that they need to go on our website. They fill out this form indicating when they are planning to, what are you planning to do a leave of absence? When are you planning to leave? And then if they're planning to leave the U.S. or stay in the U.S., when we get these answers, then we can make that determination what their options are. And then, and here we also want to have a reason why they're leaving. Sometimes we see that they're saying, I have a medical need. I would email the student and say, are you aware that there's a medical course law and you're able to stay in the United States if you file that? So we try to catch them because this process can be a little cumbersome when they want to return. Okay? So they submit that, and then we're able to, again, terminate for authorized withdrawal. If there's no registration and there's no contact, there are fewer options because then they are out of status, unauthorized. So there is a negative mark on their immigration record. So it makes them more difficult to return back into active status. So again, you can see to the left, unauthorized early withdrawal was where OIA was not in the loop of their not registration. The student only has two options. The one option to regain status is that we have to issue them a brand new I-20 or a brand new DS 2019. When they get a brand new record, they need to pay a fee. It's called a CVIS fee. For an I-20, it's $200, and for a DS 2019, $180. And if they've been out of status for less than 5 months, and their visa is valid, then they can use that visa. If their visa is not valid, then they also have to apply for a new visa. So they need a new I-20 or DS 2019, travel outside the U.S., and then come back in the U.S., and then check in with our office all over again like they just started. The negative effect of this, if it's not negative already, is that when a student, again, tapping into work authorization, in order to be eligible for certain work authorizations, they need to be enrolled for 3 quarters, full-time enrolled for 3 quarters, and then they're eligible. If we ended that document, issue a new initial document, they have to start that timeline again. So they've lost all that time accrued. Okay? The other way is to apply for reinstatement. So they are in the country, and we update their record to say request for reinstatement. They file an application, and there's a fee, of course, there's a fee. I always forget, it's like $340 or so. And then it can take about 4 maybe 6 months for the government, USCIS, to review the application and either approve it and put them back in active status. The positive thing about this is that all the time accrued to meet the eligibility for work authorization stays intact. The negative part of this is that when they're out of status and while this application is pending, they cannot work. So if they're TA, RA, they cannot do that. It has to end because they're not in status. So sometimes they opt for the travel because they can control that time a little bit.